Welcome back to Amicus Curiae, where we continue to take a closer look at some of the tax implications post the government's demonetization move. In the earlier segment, we brought you a global perspective, and in this segment, we're going to get some domestic perspective. And joining me on the show this week is Amit Maheshwari, Managing Partner at CA firm Ashok Maheshwary Associates. Amit, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thanks, Ashwin.
So, post the government's demonetization move, do you think the government actually moved fast enough to introduce the amended tax laws in the parliament, or do you think perhaps it should have moved a little more faster, considering the fact that it was inevitable that there would be some quarters who would try to potentially misuse the current tax provisions to try and convert their black money and not come under the tax lens? So do you think perhaps this amended tax law, or at least something to that regard, should have been introduced much earlier, probably a day or two after the Big Bang announcement?
You can say that my view is slightly different. I believe that the government has done this as a reactive step, considering that a lot of people have started misusing the Jan Dhan accounts and other means of converting it. We keep seeing from the media reports and seeing the action on the ground. So I think it's more of a reactive step. But yes, if they could have done it earlier, it would have saved a lot of pain. But I personally see it as a strategy of the government to make sure that the people don't know what exactly, the black money holders don't know what is coming. And people who have deposited large amounts of cash in their accounts, considering that 115 BVE would come to their rescue, are in for trouble.
So essentially, the government strategy seems to be to ensure that the culprits, just keep them guessing, right? At least that's what's happened. At least that's the trend we have seen till now, at least. Because the surprise factor has been paramount.
Yeah, I see this as an economic warfare with the black money holders. So you need to have surprises when you are into a war.
All right.
Now, demonetization was the most lethal weapon which they unleashed.
Of course, definitely. Now, Amit, let's look at a hypothetical scenario. If a person declares his undisclosed 1 crore income, if you look at what has transpired now as part of the amended tax laws that were introduced in the Lok Sabha and were passed by the Lok Sabha, 1 crore undisclosed income, 49.9% will be deducted as tax, surcharge and penalty. Out of the rest, 50 lakhs, 25% of the declared income, that is 25 lakhs, goes to what is called a Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana scheme for 4 years. Yes. So as a result, if you avail of this opportunity now, if you didn't avail of it earlier during the voluntary disclosure scheme, what you get back is 25% or 25 lakhs. Are you surprised that the government has given yet another chance to black money holders to come clean, or do you think perhaps it's dictated more by revenue pressures because they were not really happy with the kitty that they got from the original disclosure scheme? How do you look at the rationale behind this move?
I think that what they have done is they didn't expect this kind of black money coming into the formal economy through legitimate channels. So the conversions and the misuse of the accounts which has happened has led to all this. So I don't link it with the IDS scheme, but I definitely feel that this, again, as I said, it has more of a reactive step, and I'm not happy with the decision of giving them a chance, but I think, like you rightly said, because of revenue consideration, they had to do it. What's the point of them, the money coming into legitimate channels into the economy? So government would have been much better off having no money coming into the account, because RBI would have just extinguished their liability. But I think because it is coming through the legitimate money, that's become a problem. So I think it's more of a reaction for the reactive step, as I've said.
Do you think these amended tax laws also have a surprise factor, because nobody expected that the government would give a second chance? Because initially the government had told the public at large that there would not be a second window post September 30th. But considering the extraordinary circumstances and, of course, some of the rampant misuse of the provisions that has been going on the ground, the government had no choice but to give its best shot, try its luck and go ahead with a second IDS of sorts, right?
It's a second
Would you call it a second IDS?
Yeah, it's a second IDS of sort, but you need to see it's more punitive in nature. You lose interest on 25% of your money, you pay a 50% tax, and that interest, again, if you do the calculation, even a 6% yield would take you to around 56, 57%. So I think it's much more punitive, but I think it should be taken up with people, and I think it's. I'm now very sure that they would not get any third chance, because this is the final thing which they're getting, and I think they should make use of it to have that capital intact at least, even if you are putting 25% into these tax interest-free scheme, at least the balance 50% comes back to you. So you have that capital with you to probably invest or to use it later on for your business. I think that's very critical.
Amit, you're based out of Delhi.
Yeah.
You deal with a lot of clients, both HNIs as well as corporates. What's been their reaction to these recently amended tax amendments? Do you think that there is enough appetite for them to take up this second chance?
Frankly, I think yes. See, if you have to segregate people into two things. People with smaller amounts would probably take a chance. They would not go for this scheme. I think the large black money holders, which we are all concerned with, they would definitely like to go. We are getting a lot of queries on how to declare, what could be, whether we are getting immunity from various acts which the government has clarified. So I think there is a lot of interest after this. People want to come clean because they now know that they're not very sure what the government would do. And they're really, how the Honorable PM has acted by being absolutely having their ears to the ground, doing quick amendments, bringing out rules, clarification. I think they have understood that it's not going to be easy going forward. And the kind of punitive penalties which they have when they are searched and seizures happen. So I think they would definitely go for it. And we are getting inquiries right from the day it was announced. There are people coming and saying, we want to declare, can you help us doing that?
You know, confidentiality was a key part of the original ideas.
Yeah.
This time around, you mentioned it, immunity from certain provisions and certain laws. Could you elaborate on what is the protection that has been specifically clarified by the government that one will get if one way to take advantage of this second window?
Yeah, so I think the immunity which they have given is they have enlisted out certain acts under which it will not be given. Rest, you get an immunity. So I think that is very welcome. Earlier, there was a lot of confusion under which acts we will give, because we need to understand any black money which is generated also has a side effect of being in default with some other act or the other. So now they know that at least the civil laws and the taxation laws, you won't get any, you will get a penalty, immunity on that. But for other acts like the Prevention of Corruption Act, the PMLA Act, the Black Money Act, you don't get a immunity.
Amit, from a global tax policy point of view, I'm sure you travel overseas and you interact with your global peers. Do you think this is the first time that a government has perhaps come out with two back-to-back voluntary disclosure schemes for people to come clean regarding the black money within such a short period?
I don't see any of any global any country which has done it. I don't see any country doing it. But I think that what they have done is they are not naming it as an income disclosure. It's an implicit thing which we are saying it's an income disclosure scheme. But if you see countries like Indonesia, I think they have done it 4 times. And this time it's a very attractive rate. But I don't know any global precedent where they have done it on back-to-back. So this is definitely, in fact, the entire demonetization exercise is itself a very, it's a very big experiment, unlike of its kind in the world. So I think, yeah, we are for interesting times.
All right. Now, Amit, if you look at the 25%, which gets deposited to the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana scheme, and that's for 4 years, that's the lock-in period. Do you think it's too harsh, the lock-in period? Do you think the lock-in period should be tweaked? Because, I speak to some of your peers, and some of your peers tell me that as far as this particular aspect is concerned, some people might still want to go in for illegal means, as the cost is around 30 to 40%. So what changes do you think should be made to the current scheme as it is? Do you think that the lock-in period should be reduced, or some amount of interest should be provided to make the scheme slightly more attractive as compared to the illegal means?
I don't think so. I'm quite happy with the way it has been framed. And I think people who did not avail the IDS earlier needs to be penalized. And if you make it more attractive, then how about just going back to the IDS? Then it becomes very close to the IDS. So I feel that what they have done is correct. And talking about the other ways of probably converting and the various things which are going on in the market, I think a lot of them have their own pitfalls. You have people who you give money and some of them can vanish overnight. So I think, I believe that what their government is offering is very fair, considering how they have amended the various sections and what you will see if you, So don't compare it with the IDS. I think you need to compare with what penalties you can face going forward, and that you will almost end up losing entire money. So I think I don't see that there is any need for doing this. I'm pretty happy with it.
Do you think in the long term, maybe not in the next 2 quarters, but in the long term, these measures will provide a lot of tax buoyancy when it comes to the government's direct tax kitty?
Absolutely. I definitely feel that a lot of people will get into the net. I think the kind of big data analytics which the government is using, a lot of people who were not filing taxes, they would be filing taxes. And I think with the GST coming in and the way they have squeezed the expenditure of black money by putting TCS, I think all these measures would definitely make a lot of informal economy come back to the formal economy, and because of that, the tax buoyancy should increase.
You know, Amit, with every newly amended tax law, your peers, especially the CA community, because you read the fine text closer than anybody else, are there any loopholes which make these newly amended tax laws prone to litigation in any format, or is it black and white and there are no gray areas?
No, there are definitely gray areas. One of the important things which I think is come out after the amendment is that what happens if you have smaller amounts of 2.5 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, which are the savings of household savings, which the Honorable Prime Minister has also said and the Finance Minister has said.
So do you think there should be a clarification that these amounts below 2.5 lakhs deposits should be outside the purview of attracting Section 115 BBE and the scheme per se? Because that's not been clarified, and that has caused a bit of nervousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has caused a lot of nervousness to people who thought that based on the promise of the Honorable Prime Minister that 2.5 lakhs ladies would not be inquired, and I think a lot of people had deposited the money, so now they're scared that what will happen to that. I think that clarification should be required. One of the primary reason is that if somebody has deposited 2.5 lakhs, 3 lakhs, he would not be interested in going into litigation. He may as well pay the taxes, and the taxes are quite large. So I think to save people from harassment, which there is a lot of harassment on the ground in terms of the queues, etc. So honest people have also suffered. So I think at least this should be brought in as a clarification, because the way it has been worded right now, it says it has to be unaccounted money only, but it's very difficult to prove or give a trail of your household savings. It's not very easy to do. So it becomes difficult to prove it's not unaccounted money. That becomes a problem.
So for the average middle class man, if he has deposited less than 2.5 lakhs, and for genuine reasons, if he's not able to furnish enough proof of the source of that, he becomes vulnerable to this, right?
Absolutely. It's the way it's worded, you can't escape that. And they have amended it in a way that I don't see any loophole of people getting out with unexplained cash credits.
So what do you expect the government to do? Come out with a clarification in the form of a circular or a statement from the ministry? Or what's the way forward to or reintroduce that in the parliament?
I think that would be quite difficult. I think a circular saying that 2.5 lakhs of cash deposit would be treated as explained source. So I think they can at least do that.
On that note, let me thank you so much for taking out time and joining me on the show this week. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Amicus Curiae. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Ashwin Mohan signing off. See you next week.